Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. We're here in Brookshire County flying by our Houston Stadium, and in this video we're going to focus on getting a few more industries up and running across the map, and we will eventually come back here and add some finishing touches to this stadium when we get the chance. And so while we're here in Houston, we can take a look at our stadium. Everything seems to be pretty balanced out at this point. We have a somewhat heavy flow of traffic coming in and out of the stadium, which I think ends up being a good average since we can't really simulate events, so we can't really prepare for like a once-a-month game here or something like that. So I think this is a nice average that we have. We can see that also reflected in here in our destinations layer. I think around the 20 to 30, maybe even 40 would be something reasonable to come into this complex. And so I think we have our numbers dialed down. If we do think maybe we could bump this up a little bit more and this doesn't quite feel right, we can change that later on. But for now, I think everything is set up quite well here, and hopefully we will see some of these bus stops interacting with the stadium as well. It looks like we do have some that are connected to the people magnets, so hopefully we'll see some demand coming in and out on these bus lines as well. But moving on to the other side of the map, we have our town of Monroe here, where I want to focus on getting a forest industry set up somewhere in the area. Now I don't think it will be anywhere nestled in this sort of mountain range, this corner here, because I'd imagine a lot of this space would be primed for future development. So as Monroe continues to grow, it'll come up in the hills here and over this way, and then maybe eventually even parts of these roads will get paved and we'll start to push farther up the hills with these roads. But that's just something much farther on in the future to think about. So all that to say, I think we're going to try to fit a forest industry somewhere over here, and then that's how we're going to bring our logs into town and then ship them out through this cargo station. And then I think we are also going to get a fuel line set up outside of Tacoma. Again, I think it's going to be somewhere in this area, so we'll get those industries placed down. And since we are placing quite a few industries in this video, I don't think we'll have the time to get around to detailing all of them, but we will try to get them all functional and at least delivering to a location. I'm not too sure what that location will be, but we'll try to make that work. And so let's start off with what will probably be the easier industry out of the whole chain, which will be the forest industry here in Monroe. So first, let's delete this one because this isn't really in a good location for what we want it for. And really, I don't think it matters where it is in this area, so we'll just get a forest industry and we'll just place this down somewhere where we deem appropriate. Alright, so now we have our industry here. We added some roads for connections and a ton of trees in the area to really bring it home that this is a good area for a forest industry. We might have went a little heavy on the trees, so hopefully that doesn't affect our performance too much, but I think this really blends in quite well, and it makes sense for an area like this. This area of the map would be pretty untouched, so it makes sense there would be a decent amount of trees scattered throughout this area. And so let's get a loading area built. So we'll get a road, and I guess we should figure out what kind of station we want here. Alright, and so I think this is adequate enough for now, and I think all we have left to do is set up a truck line between there and our cargo station here. And while we're here, let's find our train line. It actually looks like our passenger train is starting to do fairly well. Let's take a moment to see how many people it's going to be bringing in. So it has 92 out of 95. That's about as close to full as it's going to get. So let's see. It looks like it might end up lining up similarly to how some of these other periods have been. And so as it drops off, yeah, it looks like it makes one drop off per period, and it's not losing us too much money. It looks like it might be a little less than 1 million that we're losing on this line. Again, that's not awful given what it is and the purpose it serves. I don't think that's too bad. We could always maybe add one more car, and that might help out. We can see it's actually not even taking a full load of people back, or maybe it is. We'll see when this fills up here. And so it looks like this is actually taking a full load of people back. So I don't know, we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it, but it looks like this might be on track to earn the most money it has so far. We can see it did make money this period here, although I'm guessing that's probably when it was able to stop at both stations in one financial period, so that's not going to be a regular occurrence as far as I'm aware. But anyway, back to what we wanted to do. If we find our cargo station or our cargo train, this does have the capacity to take logs back down the mountain and dropping them off here. And so our plan is we're going to take those logs from this cargo hub on a simple truck line that's going to drop them off at the sawmill, pick up planks, and then bring those planks back, drop those off at this station for our cargo train then to take both construction materials and planks back up the hill all the way up into Monroe, where we can then deliver it to this cargo magnet over here. Or actually, it's automatically connected, so we don't even have to have a truck line running through the city. Alright, so first we're going to need some trucks, or actually, first we're going to need to set up an unload stop over here. And now, I think this is going to be pretty basic at the moment. Maybe there is opportunity later on in the future for us to do a little bit more. But I think we're just going to do a simple unload stop. Pretty much right by the train station here. And then we'll have to come get a couple of trucks from our nearest road depot, which I thought was over here, but it seems like it might be somewhere else. Let's find that real quick. So it seems our nearest road depot is actually all the way down here in Roswell, but I don't think that's too bad. We will go with these trucks. They're the fastest and highest capacity. We'll start out with 10. I don't think we want to opt for too high of numbers at the moment, but that's going to run from our forest industry into Monroe here. And so the good thing about these trucks taking their time getting over here, we have a little bit of time before we'll start to see goods moving around. We can come down to this cargo hub and set up the other lines that we have. And so this is just going to be one simple line, I think, that brings logs in here and then brings planks back. Now, we do want to be careful with this because we don't want to take the planks that are intended for the tools lines. We want to make sure that these are really only intended to go back up to Monroe. And so I think what we might do is we might place another industry over here, one that's far enough away to where we can have a different stop setup, and it will still look like it's all part of the same complex, but they'll functionally be separated from each other. And so I think that's just going to be a matter of deleting this road. We'll delete that. We'll delete that all the way back over to here. We can then come in, and then we'll use a gravel road. Give ourselves a bit of space. We'll have to wait for the save to finish, but then we'll bring this across pretty much perfectly straight, and then this can go back and connect up to this road. Now I don't think, yeah, this road doesn't really connect to anything. We could eventually connect it up to Roswell, and then there would technically be a road connection between Lincoln and Roswell. I'm not sure if I necessarily want this road to be that connection, so we're going to leave those separate for now. Maybe later on there's one, maybe we split off here and it comes over, and then maybe bridges over these tracks and connects to this road, or do something like that. But that's an issue for another time. Coming back here, let's find our sawmill. Alright, and so now with this sawmill placed, we can get a stop set up. And because this road isn't getting used for anything else, we don't really have to worry about other trucks coming in here and using this. And so now if we click on this stop, we can see it's only connected to this sawmill, not this one over here. And it looks like everything else is also self-contained and separated. So we can bring whatever we want into this sawmill, and it will only ever come out on whatever line is using this station. So I think then we will need to set up a truck line running from here. So I think again we'll use more of these trucks, as they seem to pretty much suit what we would be using them for. So we will also get 10 for here, and these will run on a new line. We'll use one of these other stations here since we're not using any of the other ones, and those will go back and forth. Now we will want to make sure that they are set up properly. So here at what's considered Lower Roswell, we want this to load logs and unload planks, and then in Lincoln Halt, which is our sawmills, we want it to load planks and unload logs. So that does mean it will be coming back with half as many planks as it brings logs in, but it'll still be making money both directions, so this line should overall end up still turning us a profit. And so we'll let those trucks go out, and we should start to generate that demand. Now that everything's linked up, these trucks will go back and forth, things will start connecting with each other, and I think all that's left is for us to switch up our line. And so here in the cargo hub, we will also have it load planks and unload logs, and then at Monroe, we'll have to change the name of this, it will load logs and unload planks and construction materials. So now that should be set up correctly. Again, it's going to take a while before we start to see any sort of demand change and any numbers switch up. We can see our trucks appear to be slowly making their way up into Monroe. So it won't take too long before we start seeing them bringing the logs to our station, and I'm not sure where our train is at the moment. It looks like our cargo train is still making its trip back down to the cargo hub, so we're still not going to see any logs on it anytime soon. But if this proves to go well, we will probably try to get a second train, just so that we can have slightly more frequency, since we're currently looking at a 30-minute frequency on this line. And so while we wait for things to get running up here in Monroe, let's head over to Tacoma and begin setting up that fuel line. And so over here at Tacoma, it looks like Tacoma is actually starting to fill out a lot of the streets we've built for it, so we might actually have to build out some more streets here soon. But anyway, first is fuel, and we're sort of stuck in an interesting position here where we can sort of place these wherever we want, but we also want to make it a fun challenge for us. So I kind of like the idea that these oil wells are up here. Alright, so after thinking about this a little bit more, yeah, I think we're going to stick with oil wells sort of in this area. I think that provides a nice challenge for us. And then being slightly informed on sort of some existing industries and what would be a bit more realistic, we're going to take this oil refinery and we're going to place it somewhere in this area so that it's not too terribly far from a reasonable street connection here. And then as for our fuel refinery, because I do want to use this portion of the map, I think we're going to have a fuel refinery sort of out in this location here. And so that way we end up with some interesting dynamics with transportation, bringing oil sort of from a high up position and rough terrain down, getting that over to an oil refinery, and then figuring out how best to take it to the fuel refinery, and then getting it to this station or somewhere else for it to then get taken into Houston or Tacoma. And so let's start off by cleaning up some of the other industries in this area. So I think we'll get rid of this oil well. We'll delete the road too, just so we don't end up with a bunch of roads that lead to nowhere. And then we will continue with this existing road. So we'll delete this back a little bit, since we'll probably get 2 oil wells in this area. And so then we can come in and find our other oil industry. We can rotate this around, and we'll have to get this to match up with the same rotation. I think that's about as close as we're going to get. We can place this right here. Again, we're not going to worry about detailing at the moment, but we can delete that road, get this connected, and then over here we're going to get rid of this oil refinery. So we can just delete that and the road that was connecting it. We can come with this, grab our oil refinery, and we'll get this placed somewhere around here. And then I think somewhere back here we're going to get our fuel refinery. So I think right about here-ish might work. Yeah, because I think we want to leave space in this area here for something farther on that I have planned that I think would be cool here. So I think let's do this. And then we can start to think about how we're going to connect these all up to each other. So first of all, getting out to this oil refinery, we're going to need to clean up this road here, which we did up to a certain extent, but we're going to want to do a little bit further. This dirt road's a little bit too slow and windy for us at the moment. So we'll delete that probably back until there. We can come and find that road, and then we can pretty much just bring this around. It'll sort of follow nearby the highway that we currently have, but it'll be a bit slower and take a bit more of its own route. And then somewhere here it can start to curve around and connect back up, or maybe we sort of curve it around a little bit more just so that there's a bit more interest in the way the road goes. So we can have something like that. Now I'm really tempted to upgrade this road all the way to Houston, but I think we're going to save that until after this line is set up. So we'll resist the temptation to fix that road and pay some attention to it. But first of all, getting this oil refinery going. This road would probably get upgraded, and this would come out straight and then curve into this road. So something like that makes sense. We end up with a nice even intersection here. You can see easily out both ways. It's a bit of a dip, but I think that's okay. Alright, so now that this oil refinery is connected up to roads, let's get this fuel refinery connected up to some roads. And so this will just come out and we'll extend it. We'll bring it straight out. And then we'll start to curve. I think we're going to end up connecting to this road over here. However, we will bring the land up. And then from here on out, we can begin to level out with the terrain. And then we can just drag this all the way until we connect here. Now, what's interesting with this area, or I guess what I should say, what I'm thinking that we're going to do is we're going to truck oil down into a flat area down here. There's going to be a train station with just tank cars where we're going to send the oil by train to the oil refinery, and then by train we'll go from the oil refinery. We can then connect up to these tracks here, bypass this construction material station, and then connect up to the fuel refinery over here. Now the only thing I'm not too fond of is if we're going to ship oil by train to the oil refinery, our trip from the oil refinery to the fuel refinery isn't going to be as profitable since our train will be only carrying half capacity. So maybe we opt for a different strategy and we go trucks from the oil well to the refinery. However, our only issue there is we'll end up running empty all the way back to the oil well. However, I'm not really seeing a much better option given that we're largely setting this up for our train to be what makes us money. So the way I'm thinking about it is we're going to have a train take oil from here to the fuel refinery, and then that same train is going to take fuel from here down to our Tacoma cargo station, and then the fuel will get distributed out from this cargo station, and then our train will go back to the oil refinery empty. Or another thing we can do to help mitigate costs is we can have half of the oil coming out of here come to a station here so that our train can run full almost between all 3 points here, and the only portion that it would run empty is from the cargo station to the first oil station at the base of the hill here. Now we would still need a truck line to direct ship oil to the oil refinery, but I think that might be what earns us the most money, since the train would still earn us a decent amount going from here to the oil refinery. Now another thing we could do is source some oil from somewhere else that's maybe closer to here that would be a bit more viable for a quick truck line where we return half empty. But I think we're going to stick with this for now. And then we'll worry about everything else later on as things continue to develop. And so moving forward with that thinking, let's get our train station set up first, as that will probably dictate a decent amount of what we do. So we'll go with something like this there, and then we'll figure out where our station for the oil will be once we get the roads set up. But then for the fuel, this station, I guess this will have to go on this side, right along with the fuel refinery. And then we already have our station set up for Tacoma. So let's focus on our roads here for the oil. And this road we will upgrade to something like this. All of this is okay. I even think this generated road is fairly decent. It's a little bit steep, but I think it actually deals with this hill not too terribly. Same thing here, although it's not really that great. I think we're going to redo some of that. So let's delete this. We're not even going to end up going... Well, we will go this way for the station. So we will upgrade this road. And then this actually connects all the way back straight to Tacoma. So we'll just connect the road up that way. And then over here is where we'll more or less split off. And then our train station will be somewhere along this road. So we'll just flatten this out so we get a nice level area for that. And yeah, I think that doesn't look too bad. So we'll stick with that. And then as for our line that goes to the oil refinery, we'll get rid of this farm industry, as we're not really going to use a farm in that location. Then here we can connect these roads together. And we will continue to follow what's already generated. Although I think we'll start here. And then we'll bring a road down. Like so. That doesn't look too steep, so that's good. We'll straighten out some of these other corners that we still see. And I think at this point now we can start to bring our road out this way so that we can connect up to what we were building. And we can continue to curve slightly, continue going out, and I think we can come straight off of this road somewhere, or maybe we'll just bring this end a bit closer. And then we can just connect right up to this street. Alright, so now we can set up our last little bit of stations. So we can get our station here. I actually think that might be a decent location. We might actually be able to get enough height to bridge over this road, which wouldn't be too bad. But now what we can do is we'll connect up our train lines. Once all of our tracks are set up, we can set up our truck lines. And then after that we can start to get vehicles running on these routes. Alright, now we have our train line set up. We did run into some terrain funkiness, specifically here. I didn't expect this to be so high up above this lake, but with a little bit of terraforming, we ended up fixing that, and it's just fine. We have a bit more smoothing to do here quick, and I think that's good. Everything out here looks good. So our train line is set up and should be okay to run. Now we just need to set up our truck lines. And so here's going to be our loading platform. We'll pretty much just make this as large as we can. And we'll flip this around. That connects straight to the road. And then this can just be something like that for now. Until we come back through and detail it. But we have that station, and then we're going to need an unload stop here, and then an unload stop all the way out here for this refinery. We will just make a small little street here, just so that we're not offloading onto the main road. And so with that placed, we can get that there. And then I think this looks good. So I think now this is just a matter of setting up all of our lines. So let's start with our truck lines. Now, let's try to target a number. It's not going to be any specific number that we need, but I think if we maybe target, let's say 400 fuel for now. So that'll be 800 oil coming from our oil wells. I think that ends up being a fairly decent number that I think makes sense in my head, until we can more accurately refine those numbers. So here we're going to need some tank trucks, and just looking around at our options, I think these tank trucks might actually be our best option in terms of running cost to capacity. We only lose 1 capacity compared to our best at 16, but we save about 4,000 a year on that running cost. And so I think that's somewhat justifiable. So we will get 16 of these trucks, and these will go from this station and drop off at the oil refinery. So those trucks are going out, and then our next batch of trucks will be what takes us, or what takes the oil to the train station. So this will then go from here to this unload stop. So now those 2 lines are set up, and those trucks will slowly work their way where they need to. So next, it's really just setting up our train, and I believe we can still use this train depot the way we have our tracks set up. And so we'll run 1 train for now, as I think that will serve us just fine. Alright, and so the train we're going to be running is one of these J3A NYC Hudson engines, as it has a fairly good power for the running cost. We can take a look at the power rating. It doesn't seem like anything too crazy, and this is largely a flat route, so we don't have to worry about medium or high slopes. And it has about, I think it's 16 or 17 tank cars behind it with 306 capacity. So we'll buy this train, and this will go up on a new line. And so this is going to start here, come over to this station, come all the way out to here, and then into our Tacoma cargo station. It looks like that routed everything properly. All of that ended up working out just fine. So now let's set up our settings. So here, this is where it's going to load oil. At this station is where it unloads the oil and loads the refined oil. All the way at this next station is where it unloads the refined oil and picks up fuel. And then lastly, in Tacoma is where it unloads fuel. Alright, and so here is this train getting ready to go get its first load of oil. We can come out of here, and obviously it's going to take some time. Hopefully we'll be able to get the first few trucks in to bring that oil to this station before the train gets there. That seems a little bit unlikely at the moment, but they might be able to get there. It looks like these trucks are stopping at this oil refinery first. So these trucks would be what's bringing the oil down to the unload stop. And so we'll let this line run for a little bit while we go fix up our line in Monroe. And then once that's fixed up, we can come back and take a look at this line and do some adjusting there as well. And hopefully by the end of this video, we'll have something that functions fairly well. And actually, one last thing that we need to do. The fuel needs a location to be dropped off at before we'll actually start seeing any of it produced. So we're just going to set up a quick line in Tacoma that can run from our cargo station into the city. This line is going to be temporary, as we're going to have some other lines running instead of this one, or maybe even alongside this one. But for now, that line's just to get that demand coming in. And so let's come back over to Monroe and see what's going on here. So it looks like we do have logs waiting. We have a ton of logs waiting. I don't think the city needs that much. Unfortunately, these charts don't show us anything. And taking a look here, this doesn't really help much either. And so really the best we have to go off is our sawmill itself and see the consumers. Alright, and so checking the sawmill, we actually can't click consumers because that will end up crashing the game. I think it's a bug with the cargo magnet, which I suppose makes sense, although I'm not too sure. So there really is no way for us to definitively know how many resources this needs unless we know how often daily is and what this is and do all that math. So we'll just have to remember that we can't open our consumer data on this sawmill and the construction materials plant that leads to Monroe, because otherwise that will crash the game. However, because this sawmill is only linked to there, we can take a look at the shipment number, and that should give us an accurate reading eventually. It looks like we're just starting to get logs coming down here if we can find one of our trucks. It looks like we're just starting to get logs here, so it is going to be a bit tricky adjusting those numbers, but we will just have to sort of eyeball it for now. But otherwise, things look to be going okay. We are starting to get planks that are ready to go back. I'm not sure. Yeah, it looks like they're starting to build on this platform here, which makes sense. And maybe we can find that train and see where it is. So this train is currently here, taking a mix of construction materials and planks up. It looks like we might need to dial up the consumption a little bit, but again, I think we're going to let this go through just a bit more before we decide definitively on what we want to do there. Our rate looks decent, 168 for logs. Now if we find our train here, this train is a rate of 1 14. So I suppose if we want to have exactly half of this train be planks, this should match at 114, which we will do that for now. So we'll bring that down 133. We might be able to get rid of one more. So 117. I think that's close enough to leave it as it is. We already have a ton of logs waiting anyway. And so if we follow that number back down to our cargo hub, and then we come to this line here, this should match that. So whatever that was, I think it was about 118. And so it looks like 5 vehicles gets us to exactly 118, which then means we'll end up with whatever 50-something going back up. It looks like we're still not really pushing our limits here at the sawmill, but either way, I think we have this line set up where at least we'll be running it at a much better efficiency. So yeah, we'll let this continue to run a bit more before we decide on adding another train or not. And then I don't think we've really given it enough time yet, but we can come over to Tacoma here, and hopefully we can start to see some of our resources being moved around. So if we grab this train, nothing has reached it quite yet, and we did just get our first delivery here at the train station. Now, we were targeting 400, so let's make sure that we're preparing ourselves for that, which means each one of these lines should also target a rate of 400. So we'll double the amount of vehicles in this line. We'll do it one more time. And that should get us pretty close to 400. We'll have to sell a couple of vehicles after we do this. And so that brings us up to 490. We'll just have to grab a couple of these, sell those, and pretty much just go back and forth until we get down to 400. And it looks like we were able to reach exactly 400, although that number is definitely going to change a bit over time. And then this line we're also going to want to be at 400 so that our numbers end up working out. And so we'll slowly increase this until we get just there. We'll get one more. So 410, I'm okay with that number. So it's going to take a while for all of those trucks to make their way through Tacoma and then back up into here. And real quick, let's come back to this road into Houston, and then I think that'll be a good stopping point for this video. We'll have some good infrastructure starting to go around, and we'll be ready to do a whole bunch of stuff in the upcoming videos with these new industries. And so coming here to these roads, let's upgrade this. I'm okay with how this all looks here. Now we'll upgrade this all the way through our little mountain pass. Let's take a look and see what this looks like. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this big dip and then back up. So let's maybe delete those. We'll do our best to keep this snug tight to the mountainside here. And it looks like this actually gets us right there and keeps us still along the mountain. And I think all of this looks fine. Coming out of here, I might change this to be a bit more straightforward. We can upgrade that road. Bring that here. And yeah, I think we'll delete this road all the way back to where it was, and then we'll come back and reconnect this road into Houston. And so I think this road's going to come off of this intersection here. When we end up building the city out this far, we can worry about how that looks. But for now, that should be fine just in terms of a connection standpoint. We can mess around a bit with the terrain, get a bit of roughness in there to get this looking somewhat decent. And I think that looks fine. We'll just smooth out the rest of the way along this road. And now we can get in here to some of these finer details along the mountain pass itself, just so that it's a bit more realistic and we don't have such a cliff right along the edge of the road here. Alright, so now this little mountain pass looks a bit more believable, and I think this road came out quite nice coming all the way out to Houston. I'm not sure if we'll see people use it since the highway's right next to it and realistically is much faster, but if we end up building any sort of communities out this way, they would probably opt to use this road as opposed to coming out and hopping onto the highway here, or maybe we end up with another interchange in this area. But other than that, I think this is a pretty decent stopping point, so let's take a look so far at what we've done in this video, and then when we come back, we'll talk about some next steps and future projects. Alright, and so here we are on our new train coming past the construction materials plant. I quite like this route. I think this is a pretty nice train route, and hopefully it'll end up earning us a lot of money given the overall efficiency of the line once it will be fully running. But yeah, I think overall we did forget to balance the rate of this train, but realistically it's at 250. Our trucks are prepared to do 800. So speaking of next steps and future projects, I think our biggest next step is going to be delivering this fuel to a bunch of other areas. So by the time everything gets settled on this line, we'll probably have a second train running anyway. But for fuel, I think I want to prioritize getting Tacoma's needs met and then getting Houston's needs met, since we are grossly underfueling Houston, even though we have a full fuel line set up over here. A lot of our priorities with this fuel refinery ended up shifting towards Salt Lake City, Portland, and some of those other cities. So if we can start to fuel Houston a bit more with this other fuel refinery, I'll be very pleased with that. And we also just have a lot more space, and I think this is set up better to really squeeze the most out of it. We can probably get 2 fuel refineries here, end up moving just a ton of resources throughout this network, and I think that would be pretty good overall. So This also sets us up with a connection to this cargo hub all the way over here by Roswell. So realistically, with this line set up, I think every city can now receive fuel through the current connections that we have. It's just a matter of getting those connections made or adjusting the lines that are currently existing. So really, that's what I'm hoping to squeeze out of this fuel refinery is hopefully most of the map's fuel will come from here. Obviously, we still have the one over by Salt Lake City, but that one seems more of a regional location than the lines that this one's connected to. And so with that, we have our highway here, which is what we'll most likely be shipping fuel on to get into Houston. I think we'll be ready to expand this, and at this point I think this is going to end up coming past Tacoma on this side, and then we'll get a connection somewhere over here. Now the tricky part is going to be figuring out how we get it from this point over to somewhere in this area while having a connection to this road, as we'll want a lot of our cargo connections to be really close to the highway so that we don't have to truck all of our resources through the city just to get out of Tacoma. And so I think that's what's really going to end up being tricky, but I think we can just curve this slightly to run a good bit away from the city, although this will all end up being part of Tacoma eventually. I think I did want this highway to cut through Tacoma, but I'm just not sure if we're there yet. Maybe we can have something come across this way, and it might end up being more of a bridge through Tacoma than maybe a tunnel or something sunken in. But maybe that's what we do when we have an interchange here, and that's what comes over, or maybe we just don't come through Tacoma at all and we sort of come over this way and figure out how we cross somewhere here, but then the highway can come this way, cut across, and then that gives us our connection to Lincoln. That would actually bring us right across in a perfect location to come through this little depressed area, where then we can connect up our loop, have that connection to Pittsburgh, and then have a spur out to Roswell and maybe something up to Monroe, although it probably wouldn't go all the way up directly there. It'd probably come to somewhere at the foot of the mountain, which is where that would end up dying off at. But again, all of this stuff out here is going to be much farther ahead in the future. I think our next immediate expansion will be to this cargo area, but keeping those things in mind as we plan that will be important, as we can set ourselves up for success once we get connected here. And then obviously we have all these industries placed now. We're going to slowly work on detailing those throughout the next couple of videos. We're not really going to do it all at once, but we'll get a couple of buildings placed here and there, make this look a little bit nicer, especially as these industries upgrade. Usually when we detail these, we detail them along with the level 0 industry, so we don't really have any sort of context for what a fully upgraded industry looks like. So I think waiting a little bit once the line's established, coming through and slowly upgrading things as we continue using them, that's probably how we'll go about detailing these couple of industries that we've placed in this video. And then we also have all of this space here and a bunch of space in this area that I think would be a really good use for farms, so that we can get some food on this corner of the map. Food seems to be one of the most in-demand resources across the entire map, so I think having a third farm area somewhere over here and having it being fairly large, we have all this space. There's really nothing that would hinder us from making it as efficient as possible. And especially this valley here would make logical sense to fill this up with farms. And then we'll have our food processing plant somewhere in this area. and then that can supply a good portion of the map with food. But I think for now that's going to be all for this video. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.